I think my involvement with a refugee crisis of Syria had definitely marked me for life. Everything was so extraordinary, so difficult, so emotionally charged that I consider those years of my life to be among some of the hardest, but also some of the most rewarding times in my life. Sometimes looking at the lake reminds me of the sea back home and the trees, nature. The mind goes back to the memories, to the other homeland. Decision to leave your own homeland, your roots, your streets, your friends, your family, is probably one of the hardest and heaviest decisions that anyone has ever have to make. It does not come easily. I cannot stress enough, especially to people who have never been in that situation. There is a difference between wanting to travel and see the world or going somewhere for a temporary time, for education or visiting, and the heaviness of decision that you're making because you don't see any future in your homeland anymore. And that is how we felt. My name is Vania Ivanka, actually. I was born Ivanka Petrovic in former Yugoslavia, at that time known as Croatia, Hrvatska, or part of Yugoslavia. Married Davidovic. I've been in Canada for just half over the length of time I lived in my own country. So actually just over 30 years in this homeland as opposed to my original country of birth and youth and living, where I also lived for about 30 years. I was born the only child. I never had any siblings, brothers and sisters. Mine was a very small family unit of my parents and myself. Life was peaceful. It was, I would describe them as good years in 50s, you know. The country recovered from Second World War. We had the coast, the mountains right behind us in Slovenia. We had hills and rivers and canyons. It was a peaceful and progressive country that lived somewhere between East and West, if I can say. In my late 20s is when difficulties in Yugoslavia started.
The term Balkan has become synonymous with religious intolerance and ethnic conflict.
The fall of communism, elsewhere in Europe celebrated with joy,
triggered great political upheaval in the Balkan region.
I think it's a situation that nobody ever wants to see and believes it would be possible to see. And by that I mean witnessing your country entering the war, seeing how quickly things actually can fall apart. It's very disturbing. It stays with us. In one of the last protests we participated on the streets of Belgrade, the government and President Milosevic brought out the police on horses with water hoses. We were chased, and that night they brought the tanks outside on the streets of our own city. For us, proximity of war, it's a small country. I never truly knew when my husband could be drafted. We just had a baby at the time. Economy was spiraling down so badly, all the way into 2000, when Serbia ended up being bombed by NATO forces. That democracy that sent planes from multiple NATO countries to quote bring down the government of Serbia. But as we know, any bombing of civilian areas, as much as they claim to always target just the military targets, is never clean, is never without innocent victims and without terrible trauma for everyone involved. So one day we just literally sat down and said, it looks like we will have to look for a safer home to raise our family. Living on that bus station remains probably one of the pictures that haunts me the most. You see your father's shoulders shaking, and men that lived and grew up without parents breaking down in tears because he's saying goodbye to his only child was extremely painful. Canada became the only natural and one choice we had. May 23rd, 1993, the first day in Canada for us. It's not easy. I think first generation, like we are, is always the one that gets the hardest hit. I miss my parents. I had to come to terms that my career was actually, the way I knew it back home, was over in a way, right? Here, I rebuilt things. I was able to join the workforce and everything, but it's like somebody shook your roots really strongly. I was working on my master's in chemistry, was almost towards the end, but I didn't have opportunity to finish. Eventually, it's like any dream that you have to wake up from. We all realize that we are here in a completely different world. Now, for a refugee, for someone who had on top of that been gone through trauma, through loss, through devastation of watching their own home being in ruins, that only adds layers and layers of difficulties on top.
I think the government's program helps them just to know the language, the basics of the language. What it doesn't help them do, unless they can be with a group and to try and get them to go to places where you can ask them about, is this anything like your home, like your old home, the home you were forced to leave?
She definitely was much more aware of the struggles of us as newcomers. For our son, he was born into, you can say, almost fully adjusted family. two languages was very natural, and being exposed to English was not something that presented any issue as it was for our older one. In visits between two lands, I have felt that I belonged to both, and yet I didn't belong to either one. They spent some years here with us in Canada, and I think my mom knew that she was getting very ill and she wanted to go back. She actually wanted to go back to spend last days or months. I would say her connection was even stronger than my dad's in many ways. I always thought that Canada is one successful multinational, multicultural project in a way, and that's how we always viewed it. People who are coming from complex war situations, people who are escaping trauma, who are escaping abuse, who are escaping literal loss of family members, affected by those things and haunted by those things. And it is not realistic and possible to expect that people coming as refugees, for example, are going to have equal start in a sense of speed of things. The image of the little boy lying face down on the beach in Greece was beyond heartbreaking. Nobody goes through all that horror unless you are absolutely desperate for saving your life. I was actually completely devastated, heartbroken, ashamed of the reaction of the so-called Western world, or overall actually Europe, allowing people to die, allowing people to risk their lives, putting them in camps, surrounding them by barbed wire, depriving them of their basic human decency. Canada finally announced that they are going to receive some number of Syrian refugees, and came up with the program of private sponsorship. You have a number of supporting documents, settlement plan, financial plan, information from the bank that will show that you fundraised a sufficient amount of funds per each family, depending on their size. As a human, as someone who was welcome to this country, I only thought that it would be fair to welcome and help another human being do the same. I managed to find a sponsorship agreement holder and basically work together with them in filling in the settlement plan, in compiling the documentation, funds, transferring the funds to the bank, showing all the items that family will need and everything that you need to prepare prior to their arrival. So if somehow you end up being with the form that's obsolete, then they request you to refill the documents and to submit the new application form on the most current format. So
because you don't have enough hospitals, you don't have enough houses, you don't have enough, and we want to bring in 50 million people by 2030, 2040. So we are not ready to receive all these people. That's the problem.
Hi, Daria. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Are you at home, honey?
Yeah, I just got home.
You just got home. Oh my gosh, look
like
at
a
you,
few minutes
so
ago.
pretty. Sorry for the short notice. I just wanted to see how is everyone. Was it a good feeling to travel with Canadian passports?
Yes, it was. It was really fun. And honestly, we were kind of like worried because it was just like, going to a different country and stuff, and like, how the airports are like really big. But A lot of people like spoke English, so we did like ask around and stuff. So it was like really good.
كندا حاولت كل جهدها انه تعوض ولو شيء بسيط، بس وهي نجحت بهالشيء هذا من خلال مثلا اعاده التوطين لحالها بتكفي. هي شيء اول شيء. ثاني شيء مثلا شغله انه التدريس، بتروح مثلا تدرس سنتين ثلاثه اللي بدك اياه لبين ما تستحسن تتعلم اللغه الانجليزيه، وبعدين عندك مجالات العمل كثيره.
A lot of these people were actually desperately reaching out to volunteers, to activists, to groups around the world, trying to find some potential paths out of their situation.
Like all, I guess, like 99% of Syrians, it was. I thought at the time it's going to be like a temporary solution. We moved to Turkey. We crossed the border illegally, unfortunately, and we stayed there for a couple months. And everyone was thinking, okay, a couple more months, maybe a few more weeks, a few more days, and we will be back to Syria. And then this couple months and couple weeks turned into a couple years, and after that, so I mean, at the time, everybody started to leave Turkey, crossing the sea to Greece or crossing the border to Bulgaria. Risking their lives. Many people lost their lives on the way. And it was a dilemma. I mean, at the time you think, should I stay or should I like risk my life like any other person? And just about that time, it happens that I came across Vania on social media.
The first family that I sponsored, and the first family that actually arrived to Canada following the sponsorship. It is also the biggest family I sponsored. It has total of 7 family members, and they arrived in 2 separate times. So mother and father with children, and then 2 of mother's brothers arrived several months later. And of course, the children speak fluent English, going to schools. Everybody's doing really well with jobs and schooling. When they first arrived, both mother and father didn't speak any English really, and the children as well were too little for speaking the language. So the difference is amazing to see them now, to see their lives, to see their adjustment to the country. The family with children traveled from Iraq, while the 2 brothers arrived to Canada from Turkey, from Istanbul. But of course, it was amazing surprise and always amazing news to hear of somebody's arrival. So
the joy to have them arrive and know that they're now going to be safe. Yes, a huge learning curve ahead of them, but physically safe.
Good to see you. How are you? Hi.
Vania.
Guys, hello. Hello. Look at you guys growing like beans. Hi. How's everybody? School is over. Yay. Life is good. Need to see you a little bit to see how is everyone and how are you doing. And of course, my kiddies and there and some other families, but I wanted to see who remembers the first time. So this was from some fundraising. This is Nassim with his kids. But let's see where you guys are.
لا هي بعيدة كتير. طبعا بدك تاخذ بالحسبان مثلا الثقافة غير، اللغة، طبيعة العالم اللي عايشة هون، يعني كليا تختلف عن وطننا. بس يعني بالفترة الأولانية يعني فانيا غطت على كل شيء من طيبة قلبها، وكانت تزورنا على طول، يعني يوميا كانت عنا، بتقضي ساعات معنا وتاخذنا مشاوير، بس مشان يعني تقلل من الصدمة اللي نحن فيه، لحتى تعودنا على الحياة الكندية.
There is still, unfortunately, presence of discrimination and of different treatment given to people based on their nationality, their religion, their color. I mean, we are talking of still presence of racism. And yes, I think that refugee and refugee are not always the same, you know. And unfortunately, as much as it should be the same, welcoming and open arms to Ukrainian refugees.
While Canada has strong humanitarian cases for stateless people, it does not consider Palestine as an independent authority that they can, like even now, look how much we bought. Alberta, you want 10,000 people to immigrate from Ukraine. And there's nothing like that when it comes to people from Palestine. So we don't have anything clear in that regards.
The measures were taken very quickly and people are helped in large numbers. And yet, if we take that and compare it to situation of Gaza, where they talked about bringing 2,500 people as refugees, an imminent risk. These numbers are so non-proportional and so unjust. I don't think that something as simple as a passport that we are born with should determine our right to have a good, safe, peaceful homeland for us and for future generations. Homeland can be, I think it can be where your heart remains. So my involvement with refugees, sponsorships and families, individuals had started from 2016. I probably helped about indirectly close to 100 people, which is kind of interesting because Canada is a land to people from many homelands, people from hundreds of homelands. And it might not be perfect, but it's beautiful, and we need to make sure that we keep making it better for everyone. We can do this.